Hello, this is a video about the investments that have been made on your behalf. What I intend to do is to break down what they are and how they work. I will be as concise as I can and explain it in as simple terms as I can. However, this is a new technology and terminology, so try to be as focused as you can, as a lot of cryptocurrency and the digital space in general can be hard to understand at first. With patience, you'll soon be up and running. If there is anything you don't understand, feel free to pause and reflect on it, as it sometimes takes a couple of replays to come to terms with. But if you are at a real loss, feel free to reach out to me and I will try to answer any questions you may have. If there are parts you understand already and feel comfortable with, skip ahead to the sections more relevant to you. Money, stocks, and crypto. In this section, I will attempt to define what these terms are. We generally aren't taught this in school, so I thought it best to clarify before I delve too deeply into your investments. What is money? It is whatever our society determines it to be. It may seem strange, but currencies only tend to have an approximate lifespan of 50 years. If you don't believe me, have a look at this. You may think that dollars have been around for a long time. This is true. However, the gold standard ended in 1971 when Nixon decoupled gold from the dollar. Today, like the currency of most nations, the pound is fiat money, which means it's not backed by any physical asset. I'm sure you have noticed that your money has less buying power as the years go on. This is due to inflation. Until 2008, there was a set percentage of inflation. However, when the financial market crashed, the government solution was to print more money, or quantitative easing as they like to call it. The problem is that when you print more money, you decrease the value that each dollar or pound is worth as there is more in circulation. Since 2020, you can see that the printing of money skyrocketed and we are entering a period of hyperinflation. Let's have a quick look at history. In West Africa in the 16th century, glass beads were the currency exchange for goods and services. The Europeans arrived and realised that they could make huge amounts at home to trade as their glassmaking technology was improving. As you can imagine, the beads proved to be a cheap and efficient way of exploiting African resources. Eventually, they switched to gold and ivory as a means of exchange. If you look at the current situation in El Salvador, they have recently adopted Bitcoin as the currency of choice as they no longer trust the American dollar. I firmly believe that other countries that currently have US dollars as their currency, especially those in South America, will follow suit as the dollar becomes less valuable and less trustworthy. What are stocks and shares? When you buy some shares in Apple, Amazon, Facebook or Google, you do not get to influence the product in any way. You are investing in a belief that the price will go up in future, nothing more. Take a look at property, for example. We all know that a house can be built with raw materials for somewhere between $30,000 to $100,000. So why are we paying so much more than that? The same reason that you buy shares. You accept the price of the house at its current price as you believe that the price will go up in future. What is cryptocurrency? Bitcoin was invented in 2009 on the heels of the economic recession. The idea has been around since the invention of computers in the 1970s, but the necessity of needing a currency to replace or coincide with fiat currencies becomes more urgent. The crash of 2008 made many people realize that they could not trust their governments or large businesses and corporations to act in the best interests of the population at large. Digital cryptocurrency works in the same way as shares. You buy a coin with the hope that the price will appreciate, then you can sell it on to the next person willing to buy at that price. The belief in the coin, much like our belief in the pound, is what gives it its value. There are over 16,000 digital coins, the majority of which are scams or get-rich-quick schemes. It is currently very much like the dot-com bubble of the 1990s. A few people got rich in the short term, selling websites that had no value and most were worthless. However, if you had invested in Facebook, Google or Amazon, you did very well indeed. Like those companies, there are some digital coins which are genuinely revolutionary technology and which I believe will stand the test of time. Bitcoin is in its 13th year. It has proven itself as a store of value with venture capitalists, legacy investment and hedge funds now getting involved. Ethereum, a much faster network with the ability to build smart contracts onto it, which is why the majority of the 16,000 coins are built onto it. HEX, a high-interest savings account with a time lock function. It is much like the English bonds or the American certificates of deposit. You lock your money away for a period of time and you earn the inflation or interest as reward. More on this, as well as Pulse Chain later on. So, why bother with digital at all? Doesn't our currency work well enough? Sadly, the answer is no. The pound and the dollar in particular are being inflated at an incredible rate at the moment, with more being printed in the last 2 years than in the previous 40. The savings that you have and the money that you earn are being outpaced by inflation, currently around 7% a year. This is why I have invested in products that are not tied to the pound and I firmly believe will be the money of the future. HEX was invented by Richard Hart and released to market on December 2nd of 2019. He was already a multimillionaire in his early 20s before he stumbled across Bitcoin in 2010. He was one of the original miners of Bitcoin and a big supporter of the community. Over the past decade, he gradually became disillusioned with the infighting and frustration at the lack of development of the technology. Eventually, he became one of Bitcoin's biggest critics, despite owning a huge reserve of the coin, earning him disdain among the Bitcoin community. One of the key flaws with Bitcoin relates to an inbuilt mechanism designed to make the coin more and more scarce over time. This is known as halvening, and every 4 years the rewards for mining Bitcoin are halved. What began as a 50 coin reward for each block mined became 25, then 12.5, and now it's just 6.25 coins. Whilst the halvening of the reward rate is a positive upward price pressure, the problem is the cost in electricity to run the huge computing or mining rigs needed to solve the incredibly complex math to get the rewards. This is a competition amongst the miners. First to solve gets the rewards. Unbelievable gigawatts of electricity are burned in the process, using not just green but vast amounts of fossil fuels derived energy, which not only pollutes the atmosphere, costs the miners almost the value of each coin minted. That means the miners must sell the majority of their coins, and that creates a powerful downward pressure on the price, negating the upward pressure of the halvening. This whole process is known as proof of work, and it's this, along with the lack of functionality, which Richard Hart has criticised the most and earned him the disrespect and attacks which he continues to attract. What is HEX? Unlike Bitcoin, HEX is proof of stake, or proof of weight, as Richard Hart has called it.
What is this HEX, you might ask? HEX is a cryptocurrency, albeit a very different type of cryptocurrency. You see, instead of simply spending or trading this cryptocurrency, HEX lets you lock up your money and gain interest on it. We already do this through our banks. It is what the banking industry calls CDs, or certificates of deposit. Customers lock up their wealth for a certain time, and in turn they grow their wealth by earning interest. But the old-school currencies that we lock up in our banks suffer from inflation, which means that while you are gaining interest over time, your money is also losing some of its value. This is where HEX shines, because HEX is the first high-interest paying cryptocurrency. HEX takes the profit out of banks and government money printing and gives it to HEX holders. HEX is actually designed to increase in value. In fact, the value of a single HEX token has multiplied by more than 80 times within the first handful of months it was launched. Which means the HEX holders not only gained interest, but they also multiplied their existing investment exponentially. And it's only just getting started. What makes HEX even more reliable is the fact that HEX is a trustless peer-to-peer system, which means that there is no central power that controls the system. Everything is powered by the users without any counterparty risk. It's pretty, interesting. To get started, head to hex.com. Links below. Farewell.
Hex is kicking the shit out of Bitcoin and Ethereum and everything else. It's beautiful. I love it.
What does this mean in practice? The exciting thing about HEX is that the price of the coin is held up by the people who stake it or lock it away for a period of time. When you stake your coins, anywhere from 1 day to 15 years, you automatically earn interest or yield on what you have staked. You are printing your own money. This might sound crazy, but this is exactly what the Bank of England and the Federal Reserve do. They are unelected officials who get to decide how much money they print out of thin air. You do not have a say in this, and you are also not going to get a slice of it. Imagine it. In HEX, you are the bank and the reserve, and you get to keep the interest generated. Because of this, the majority of people are locking their coins away for longer and longer periods of time. This gives the coin much more value than anything else on the market. So, what happens if you need the money urgently and want to sell? Well, first of all, it isn't mandatory to stake in the first place, but you won't get the best experience or value that the coin was designed for. It is possible to sell early or emergency end your stake. I personally would not recommend this, as you lose a portion of your interest and possibly some of your principal investment as well. But the good news about this feature is that when other people execute this function, where does the interest go? To you, the rest of the people who staked and trusted in the system. The best thing about HEX, in my opinion, is that you are completely in control of your money. You decide how much to stake, you decide for how long, and you run the code. That's it. No bank, no middleman taking a cut of your profits. Everything is yours and yours alone. As discussed earlier in this video, the two main networks I named are Bitcoin and Ethereum. There are others, but these two have the most users by far. Bitcoin, as I previously mentioned, is by far the most well known, and it has been adopted globally and accepted within the financial industry. However, what is not discussed in the mainstream media is that it has been hacked twice by what is called an inflation bug. This means the hacker could print as many coins as they wanted. The sad reality is that the Bitcoin code hasn't changed much since its inception. Anytime developers try and upgrade it or make improvements, it leaves the network open for attack by hackers. This is another advantage of HEX. The code was completed before launch and cannot be changed by anyone, including the developers. It is immutable and has functioned perfectly for over 2 years, never been hacked, and the servers have never gone down. Ethereum. Ethereum is a much faster network than Bitcoin. The average time for a transaction to go through is 13 seconds compared to Bitcoin's 10 minutes. It also has the advantage of allowing people to build upon it. These are called smart contracts. It is what HEX is and what all of the other 16,000 coins are. Up until the beginning of 2021, the network has functioned well, allowing all programs and coins built upon it to thrive. Unfortunately, due to its popularity coupled with changes to the protocol, the network has become bloated, causing transaction fees to skyrocket. When it started, transaction fees cost pennies. At its worst, you could be paying anywhere from $25 to $100, in some cases over $1,000, just to perform simple transactions on the network. This obviously cannot go on, hence the decision by Richard Hart to create a new network called PulseChain. PulseChain. PulseChain is the new Ethereum. This may not sound like much, but actually it is an incredibly important and vital development to happen to the digital space. First of all, It is a direct copy of the Ethereum network, known as a fork, which includes all of the tokens, including your HEX tokens, being copied over and duplicated. Once the prices reach an equal value over time, and I personally believe it will not take much time, you will have effectively doubled your money for free. This is being done for everybody who holds tokens on the Ethereum system, not just HEX users. The amount of economic energy that this creates will be remarkable. But that is not all. Ethereum's fees will be lowered significantly. It will be easy to use. MetaMask wallet users click one drop-down menu to switch between networks. Lower fees. Initial transactions will be 1/1000th of a penny. PLS, the native token, is deflationary. It removes pollution. No miners running large computer rigs costing millions in electricity. They are replaced by validators. This method of verifying transactions on the network uses very little electricity in comparison, even if the network scales up to accommodate new users. High speed. 4 times the speed of Ethereum, transactions take an average of 3 seconds. This new chain is due to be launched very soon. In fact, the test network has been in operation since October 2021 and working perfectly. On your behalf, I have invested in this new network by a process called a sacrifice, which may sound ominous, but all it really means is that you can't buy tokens for something before it exists. Therefore, you send money with no expectation of receiving anything in return. This may sound scary, but in fact this process has been done many times before and it works well. The benefit of doing this is that you receive many times your investment in the new token, in this case, 10,000 tokens for every $1. This makes the initial supply extremely large, in fact in the trillions, which may make you ask, why should I bother? Well, you need to bear in mind that the supply is deflationary. There will never be any more of it, so in theory, the longer you hold it, the more it is worth. There is also an additional interesting factor that a small portion of every single transaction on the Pulse network is going to be burnt regularly. This will further reduce the supply. This is what Pulse X is all about. Pulse X. Pulse X, or Pulse Exchange, is where all the tokens on the Pulse Chain network will be traded. All the different networks have their own exchange. For example, Ethereum has one called Uniswap. It is not the only exchange you can use, but it is the largest. Pulse X is a copy of Uniswap with a couple of small changes. For example, it will be cheaper to use, but as I mentioned before, it will also burn a small percentage of every transaction fee. This will remove some of the PLS token off the market permanently. When you do that, there is less of it, making it more scarce. Think of the De Beers Foundation owning the majority of the diamonds in the world. They only release a small amount at a time, making it scarce and extremely valuable. Pulse and Pulse X will be exactly the same in time. As an incentive to use the Pulse X system, you will get an additional token called PLSX. I have also sacrificed for this token for you at the same rate. If you think there is a danger that this network won't get much adoption, I'm here to tell you that it's already made a lot of noise within the crypto community. Take the amounts that have been invested. The total amount sacrificed for the Pulse chain was over $670 million. As well as this, there has been over $1 billion that have been sacrificed for the Pulse X token. This, perhaps unsurprisingly, has not made the mainstream news, as we are eclipsed by the current pandemic and political turmoil. This is a new movement of money that will cause shockwaves throughout the world.